Hello everyone, welcome to episode 3 of Linux for Your Average Gamer. In this episode I'm going to be talking about how to install Garuda Linux. Now a quick disclaimer, you're going to need a flash drive for this video. Between 8 to 16 gigabytes should be perfect, and it needs to have either no personal files on it or you need to be able to back the personal files up or something like that. Because we are going to be wiping this flash drive. If you don't already have one, I left a link in the description to a flash drive that you can use. I've been using it for a while. They're really fast and reliable and pretty cheap. So if you don't have a flash drive, be sure to check that out. And if you haven't already, be sure to leave a like if you find this video useful, and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more from this channel and more of this series. But let's just get right into this. So for starters, I've already got the Garuda homepage up. This is the link to the website. All links are going to be in the description. Welcome to Garuda Linux. Choose your desktop environment. It comes with a ton of different desktop environments. Technically, these are called flavors with Linux distributions. Whenever it comes in different desktop environments, the desktop environment that you get will be called the flavor of the Linux distribution. Technically, if you don't already know, a desktop environment is like on Windows here, the start menu, the taskbar, not the actual file explorer program, but like the windows and stuff like that. That's all part of the desktop environment. So these are the minimum requirements. Make sure you can meet all of these. At least 30 gigabytes of storage space, 4 gigabytes RAM or more, video card with OpenGL 3.3 or better, 64-bit system. So on older computers, you need to make sure that you have a 64-bit system. With some computers, they might not have a 64-bit operating system installed, but they're still 64-bit capable. To check, you want to go down to Control Panel, and then System and Security, and then you hit System. And since I'm on Windows 10, it brings up the actual new Control Panel, which is very annoying, but whatever. And then System Type, it's 64-bit operating system, 64-base processor. This is what you want to look for, 64-base processor. Just make sure that says 64 and not 32. For the Control Panel version, it should say somewhere if it's 64-bit capable. Just make sure that it says 64-bit capable. But yeah, that's the minimum requirements. Installation procedure, we're going to get back to that. Recommendations, dual booting Garuda Linux may lead to unexpected issues. I understand why they put this here, but dual booting is fine. I'll talk about how to dual boot without breaking anything in this video, because technically I'm going to be dual booting in this virtual machine, which will be interesting, but we'll get it done. And live session login details, we'll get back to that. So Garuda KDE Dragonized is the first one that pops up. This uses the KDE Plasma desktop environment. This is my personal recommendation. The KDE Plasma desktop environment is extremely customizable. Like, you can customize anything, but it's also the easiest to customize. Like the window borders, even the desktop wallpaper, moving things around, like having the taskbars and stuff like that. It's so easy. With other desktop environments, they might be customizable, but it's not nearly as easy to customize them. Plus, KDE is probably the most similar to Windows, and it's kind of like a Windows power user kind of thing. If you're very used to Windows 7 or something like that with the control panel and all, you're going to like KDE, believe me. There's also Garuda Linux GNOME. If you're more used to, say, Chrome OS or mobile operating systems, or if you've even used Ubuntu in the past, you might like using GNOME. GNOME, I've never really used it, but it's very elegant looking. It's very modern. It's also extremely easy to use. Cinnamon. So XFCE and LXQT, if you're using an older computer or a less powerful computer, and I mean like not pretty much a potato computer, I would highly recommend using one of these desktop environments. They're both very light on resources, not very resource intensive. They're very lightweight. I would highly recommend checking both these out. You're using one of these if you're on a lower end computer. And then there's more down here, but these are the more complicated desktop environments. Like technically this one's called a window manager. This is something totally different. I'm gonna make a video on window managers eventually, but not anytime soon, because I myself don't even use a window manager. They're very, very power user, but To download the KDE Dragon Eyes, there's the gaming edition, but this comes with a lot of bloatware. We're not going to worry about this one. So just hit direct right there. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and cancel that because I already downloaded it. But that's how you download it. And then over here, we're also going to need Rufus. Again, links in description, rufus.ie. This might look like a little bit of a sketchy website. It is the legit website. Here's the download right here. I'm going to go ahead and download that. But this is the legit website. If you don't trust this website, it's also on Microsoft Store. I know the same name, Rufus. You can get it from there if you want, but it's up to you. And then I have to go grab Rufus. There it is. Alright, and then we need to open up Rufus. It's going to ask for administrator privileges. That's fine. Just go ahead and click yes. I've already mounted my flash drive. If you haven't already, be sure to plug in your flash drive right now. Then disk or ISO image, please select. So you click select, and then you click the ISO image. And then this little pop-up is going to appear. You click OK, because that's fine. And then you can't change any of the settings. Once again, that's fine. You just hit start. And then all data on device will be destroyed. This is the 8 GB. This is the correct device. Make sure that you're on the correct device, because once you click OK, it will wipe all the data on the device and it will flash the operating system to it. So just make sure you're on the right device. But click OK. That's going to delete partitions. All right, that's going to write images, or write the image. That's going to take a little bit, so I'm going to cut the recording. All right, and this just finished up, and once it's done, it's going to go back to the status is ready. You can just go ahead and close that. Then if you open up the, see right there, EFI, boot. Okay, this has got all that. That's the flash drive. So, yeah, you're all done. Now, if you're going to install Garuda Linux on the computer you just used to flash Garuda to the flash drive, then just leave the flash drive plugged in. Otherwise, go ahead and unplug it and plug it into whatever computer you're going to use to put Garuda on. And if it's the first scenario and you have another device to watch this video on, go ahead and pull this video up on that device. Otherwise, watch ahead a little bit in order to get a general idea of what to do. Hello. So, things probably look different. I'm recording this during editing because I noticed that what I did before in the recording was absolute trash in terms of actually showing you what to do. So, no Garuda, no Steam, and the time's completely different, which is going to give away most of my cuts in the video, but whatever. So basically, if you want, whenever you go to restart your computer, it should automatically boot into the flash drive for the Garuda installer. But in case it doesn't, if you're on Windows 10 or 11, the easiest way to get to the boot menu or whatever is to go to the power, hold down shift, click restart. Do not let go of shift until you see this menu. Then you want to go over here. You can also use a device right here, and it should show you all the different devices you have installed. If you see the USB drive listed here, just go ahead and click on that, and that'll automatically boot into that. Otherwise, click troubleshoot, advanced options, and then I've seen that there's been a boot menu option here before, but I'm not seeing it here now. So just click UEFI firmware settings, hit restart, and then this is the virtual machine BIOS that I have. It's kind of funky, but in a regular BIOS, you should see like a menu for a boot, or like a boot priorities or something like that. For me, I'm gonna go to boot manager, and I currently don't have my Garuda ISO file hooked up, but you're going to see something here, either your flash drive or something called Garuda, probably your flash drive, and you want to just hit enter on it, and that will automatically boot into it. And you'll see there's a timer down here. To stop the timer, just use the left, up and right arrow keys to move, and then the timer will stop. And then the option you want to go with is boot allowing proprietary drivers. You always want to go with this, even if you don't have an NVIDIA graphics card or any NVIDIA products. You just always want to go with this one. And there's a big reason behind why you want to go with it. Mostly it's just because the open source NVIDIA drivers are not as good as the proprietary NVIDIA drivers. And a lot of people say that you have a lot of issues with NVIDIA graphics cards and stuff on Linux. I myself, whenever I used an NVIDIA graphics card, didn't have any issues really whatsoever. I only had one issue, and simply reinstalling the graphics driver solved the problem. Now, once Garuda is actually on the live Garuda installer, you'll have this Garuda welcome page. And what's cool about Garuda is a lot of things that are normally really difficult to do on Linux, or not really difficult, but just not very user-friendly, they have literal apps and utilities for all of it. Plus, they have all these shortcuts for the website, the wiki, all these different things, even different chat systems. But to actually install Garuda Linux, you're going to want to hit that big button at the bottom. Love that background, by the way. Then you're going to wait for the image to load, American English. Customize all these settings as needed. I'm just going to leave that on Chicago. Default. Now, if you're dual booting Windows, see right there, Windows 10, and then these are just different partitions. But if you're dual booting Garuda Linux and then whatever other operating systems you might have, you want to click Install Alongside, and you want to click on your Windows partition or whatever operating system you might have, and then use this slider to select how big and or how small Garuda will be. Now, this is how small I can make the Windows partition. This is how small I can make Garuda. Garuda is red, Windows or whatever your operating system is green. So I'm just going to leave it right about there because I don't plan on using Windows that much. Yeah, probably about the middle. Now, if you're planning on completely wiping the computer and putting Garuda on it solely, then click Erase Disk. This will put the entire computer space towards Garuda, or at least the main drive. And you can select the storage. If you have multiple storage devices, you just select it up here in this drop-down menu. I only have one virtual hard disk, so I'm not going to worry about that. And then I'm dual booting, so I'm going to leave that right about there. Then we're going to hit Next. Then you want to fill out all this information. Your login name is like for the terminal or something. If I go, where's the terminal? For example, if I go into the terminal, right now my username is Garuda. So your username, not used to the X button being on the left side, but your username would be whatever you would see in the terminal. So for me, I'm just going to make my username example. My full name is going to be example with a capital E. And then the name of the computer, this is pretty much the Windows equivalent, would be the host name of the computer. So I'm going to make the host name example Garuda. Then you choose your password. I'm going to make mine 1234. 1234. I'm going to check login automatically. That's up to you. And then use the same password for the administrator account. So every Linux distribution comes with what's called the root account. This would be, the Windows equivalent would be the administrator account that comes with Windows and Windows Safe Mode. And the root account has access to everything. It's the administrator account. So if you uncheck that, you can make a separate password for the administrator account, or you can just use the same password. I don't really care, so I'm just going to use the same password. And then here's the total summary. Just look over all this, make sure everything's correct, especially the partitions. You don't want to wipe anything that's important. Make sure you're on the right drive and all that stuff. And then you're going to go ahead and hit install, and then install now. Once again, just make sure everything here, everything here is correct. You got to make sure everything there is correct. We're going to go ahead and hit install now. And yeah, that's going to do its thing. And this is the new boot manager. This should be boot priority number 1. And it should auto boot into Garuda Linux. It's like a 5-second or 10-second countdown. If you want to boot into, say, Windows, then you just use the up and down keys for navigation. So from now on, just make sure, or from now on, this is your boot menu. And you can boot into Garuda Linux, or you can boot into Windows if you're dual booting. Oh my gosh, I love that output. That is beautiful. So once you get Garuda Linux installed, this is the first time setup assistant for the session. So you just click OK. Alright, and then you type in your password in this terminal. Alright, and then this is going to run a full system update, and it's going to set up the background systems of Arch Linux, which means it has to initialize the package key rings and get all the packages up to date and all this different stuff. So just wait till this is done, and then whenever it's done updating, it'll be all good. So I just got Network Manager support and Network Manager Fortis LVPN are in conflict. So just click yes, and then you can type in yeah. You can press yeah. You can put Y and then hit enter, or you can just hit enter. If there's nothing there, then it'll just assume yes. A warning just popped up, and I know this is kind of poorly cut, I'm sorry about that, but a warning just popped up and it's going away. Bye-bye warning. If you see warnings, don't worry about them. See like directory permissions and bye-bye. Just don't worry about those. The setup knows what it's doing. Alright, and then once the system is fully updated, it'll say system updated, and then update notices. Yeah, just don't worry about the update notices and press enter to exit. Alright, and then you have all this OS preferences. You need printer, scanner, and Samba support. I don't need this. If you have any printers on your network that you want to use, check that. Do you want to install additional Garuda wallpapers? That's up to you. Do you need pen testing software? Chances are if you need pen testing software, you're not watching this video, so probably no. Input, Asian font support. Nope. I'm just going to go through these pretty quickly. Software centers, no. Okay, so here's the thing. This is your current software center. This is your Microsoft Store. Give it a minute to load. So this kind of looks a little complicated. This is called Octopi. Basically, this is a graphical user interface for your normal Arch Linux package repositories and the Arch Linux user package repositories. That's why this package manager is really cool. It's because it has access to the Arch user repositories rather than most others, which normally just have access to the regular repositories. And with this, you can say we want to install Steam. So we look up, Steam. There we go. And then there's Steam right there. Steam, and then there's a few other Steam native runtime. We're not going to worry about that. So just Steam. And if you want to install that, wait. I'm kind of new to Garuda too, if I'm going to be honest. But you just right-click and then install. And then you can check for dependencies. We're not going to worry about Steam native, so you just click OK. Go over to actions, and then that's just going to go ahead and get installed. But yeah, that's your current package manager. If you want a better looking package manager that still uses the Arch Linux package repositories, you can use Discover. To my knowledge, this doesn't use Flatpaks or snaps or anything like that. Those are basically just different versions or different types of Linux software. I'll make a video about those in the future. But if you want to go ahead and install this to get a better looking and slightly easier to use package manager, you can. But I would recommend sticking with this one and just learning how it works and stuff. Because this one, while it's not very pretty, it's the best you can use. Because then you'll have access to OR. So for now, I'm not going to install Discover. Kernels, don't worry about kernels. Office, you can go through here and any of these that look good you can use. I myself use LibreOffice, which I guess it'd be fresh or still. I guess use still. LibreOffice is basically the Linux equivalent of Microsoft Office. It's got all the tools like Excel and Writer, just a bunch of different stuff. So I'm going to check. Well, actually, no, this is a virtual machine. I don't need that. But if you want like WordPad or stuff like that, a writing program or a spreadsheet program, you can check that. Browsers, if you want, you can install. There's a bunch of different ones. If there's Opera, Vivaldi, Brave. A lot of those you already know. There's Tor browser. There's Firefox. I'm going to install FireDragon, which is the default. Which, if this is based on LibreWolf, this might give you a better experience because it's integrated with the rest of the operating system. But LibreWolf is very, very locked down, meaning that you might actually experience some issues on websites that require more access to your data. So you might want to go with just Firefox or Chromium or Brave or one of these others. But that's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and go with FireDragon. Email, you can go with any of these. Thunderbird, you probably heard of. There's Kmail. I've never really used a email client. There's communication, so you got Telegram, Discord, a few Matrix clients, Microsoft Teams. I didn't know that was on Linux. That's cool. Twitch GUI, Mumble, Slack, Skype, Zoom, Signal, just any of these that you might want. I'm not going to worry about those. Let me make this window bigger. Nope. There we go. Oh my gosh, there's so many tabs. Audio. Again, all these are up to you. I myself might want Eliza. I believe there's already an audio player installed, but just in case there isn't, I'm going to go ahead and go with Eliza. Video, KDE and Live, I'll make a video about it later on, but it's a video editor that's very handy, but I'm not going to install that here. OBS Studio, if you're planning on recording or streaming, you can go with OBS Studio. There's another version of OBS Studio that you might want to grab later on, because the default version does not come with custom browser tabs, which is very annoying because it very well could, but it just doesn't. I'm going to go ahead and grab VLC. Graphics. Krita it's kind of like Paint.net a little bit. It's kind of like Paint.net on steroids. Then you got GIMP, Blender, all these others. Just look through these, any that you see interesting. Yeah, that's going to be about it. So I'm going to click OK. And then you got to type in your password again. And then just hit enter. Alright, and that's going to install all the packages that you chose. Alright, and then your system is set up and ready to go. And then here's your Garuda welcome. You can uncheck this if you don't want this to pop up every single time you start the computer. But you got a bunch of different stuff like Garuda Assistant. What does Assistant do? So in Garuda Assistant, you've got like a system update, which, yeah, I'm assuming. As you can see, there's nothing to do because it just updated, so we're going to go ahead and hit enter. Refresh mirrorless, refresh. So something super handy, once again, something that they've done that's super easy, makes life a lot easier. In Arch Linux, one of the major complaints a lot of people have with it is the fact that if you don't update the system for a long time, maybe months at a time or so, it will actually break the system. And it's so common that there's, on the Arch Wiki, like on the front page, there's a link on how to fix it. And honestly, it's super simple and easy to do. It's just like running 2 commands. But right here, you just use, I think it's keyrings, then mirror list, or just whichever's broken. So you just click on one of those and it'll fix it if you haven't updated in a while. But that's super handy. Garuda Gamer, I'm assuming. Yeah, we've got a bunch of different stuff here. A bunch of different emulators. And then we've got Steam, Wine, Proton. We'll talk about those in a later video. OpenRGB, if you use RGB stuff like that, then you can go ahead and get that installed so you can manage your RGB stuff through Garuda or just through Linux as a whole. OBS Studio, again, custom browser docs aren't enabled. If that's not important to you, you can just go ahead and install that. But if it is important to you, then I'll make a video on how to get custom browser docs. EasyEffects is kind of like a voice changer, but it's more along the lines of just like applying different effects to your voice rather than like voice mod or something. System Cleaner, BTRFS Assistant. Got to type in the password. I don't really know what this is because I've never really dealt with BTRFS. I keep messing that up. So I'm just not going to touch that. Garuda Settings Manager, what we got in there. Hardware configuration, time and date, kernel. Wow, they've just got everything covered. This is an awesome operating system, not going to lie. What we got in Garuda boot options. So we can even change the theme. I'll talk about changing grub themes in a later video. I'll just leave it on the default for now. You got different splashes. You can test these out if you want. Silent grub and regular grub. Basically, all this means is whenever the computer first started up, it had that really cool dragon loading animation, and then at the bottom left it said escape for text output. Basically, instead of showing the animation, it would show all the output, which not only can look cool, but it also can be handy if, say, your computer has an issue starting up. You can see what the problem is. But I would just leave it on silent, because if you press escape, you can just go and see what the problem is anyway. So we're just going to close that. But yeah, honestly, this is all really, really cool. And I'm going to make more videos on this operating system, and this is pretty much just going to be like the default operating system that I make my video or Linux videos on. I'm gonna support other Linux distros, obviously, or just talk about them, not really support them, but just talk about them and how to do stuff with them. But I'm primarily going to be focusing on Arch related stuff and Garuda related stuff, and like whenever I make videos and stuff for Linux, I'm going to be using this Linux virtual machine. But yeah, I really hope this video helped you out, and if it did, be sure to leave a like, and if you want to see more of this series and more from this channel, be sure to subscribe. And if you have any issues or any comments, suggestions, anything like that, be sure to comment them down below. But thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day.